Dude, you are getting well. Dudes of all genders, Dude Nation, welcome to this podcast, Dude, You're Getting Well, where I interview leaders about how they've turned their pain into their purpose, how you can do the same, and maybe just some tools for how to deal with your own humanity. I'm so grateful to get to introduce and be with this guest and bring this amazing human to your lives today. And her name is AYANA Watkins. And Janine and I are going to be talking today about some ways to get out of your own way and step into your light, that you maybe even are the source of everything you need, and how to embrace the journey. So without further ado, welcome, Janine.
Salutations, everyone, and thank you for that beautiful introduction, Ben.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So, Janine, what had you say yes to Dude, You're Getting Well?
Well, two things really popped up. The first was the fact that we are on this amazing community called the Morning Rush, which happens every day. And it just happened to be right before you started leading on the one day of the week that I can actually be part of it. So that was the first alignment. Second alignment was just in the conversation about what we were actually, I'm going to say, captivated in, but also what we were present in, as Lisa Mosby had talked about and created in that space. I just felt such an opening in any opportunities. And so the fact that literally not only were you part of that conversation and you had made the request, I was like, whatever it is, my full body was in on it already. And then just our connection after, Ben. Like, there's just, I don't know how to explain to everyone how I experience being human. I witness so often now when people's words are so woven within what I want to create in this world. I knew at that moment when you had asked that this was more for not just myself, but this is for like the next generation of Janine. And so there was no way I could say no if I'm a person who truly is becoming the best version of myself every day.
Thank you for that. I mean, that alone, I'm like, all right, podcast's over. That was great. Did you all get all that? That was amazing.
You didn't even tell me about the Crusade pamphlet behind you.
Oh, I will in just a moment. But I want to
Okay.
say, hey, we have some people coming in live. So if you're here, welcome. Welcome. We're going to have a really beautiful, heart-opening conversation today. Feel free to comment along. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast or to YouTube right now, just click that button so that you can be the first to receive this medicine in the future. And if you're getting this download right now, welcome to it. Janine, you gave a shout out to the Morning Rush where we met. And I want to thank you, David Rush, for the beginning of this beautiful treehouse collective that has become all these amazing people. And the Morning Rush is a morning empowerment call for busy, heart-centered entrepreneurs. And it's free, and it's where I get to get lit up. And one of the only days of the week I can make it is Wednesday. So to get to be with you there, Janine, is a gift. So when the universe speaks, like I heard you listening to intuition and about your experiences being a human, which I can't wait to hear more about. But as you know, for me, I've just started to listen to what's in front of me, as I start to get out of my own way. And I'm like, oh, where do I have to go? Who do I have to talk to? How am I going to survive? Who's on my team? Who can I trust? Who should I follow? And then I just like stop and listen. It's like, oh, they're right here in front of me. You just have to open your arms and receive what's being there. So you were one of those souls that felt like, oh, bloop, here you go. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, come on in.
Yeah.
So thank you that's how I really felt when I met you, like so received, and also listened to in a way that was really unique for me. It was like, wow, this human really listens to everything, and it's just a beautiful experience to be in your listening. So with that, Janine, what lights you up today? What are some of the ways that when you're listening for what's there in your life, like the calling, what is your calling today? What has you wake up in the morning?
Well, and it's funny. I know today is the supermoon, and that is not why I woke up at 1:28 this morning. Although two things that happened when I first woke up, and I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the artist way. I
Mm.
usually will start, yeah. Oh my gosh, another shout out to another morning rush just champion,
Oh my
Roots
God.
Influx Zenith. He has actually started. This is week 3, and sitting in week 3 of like the anger and like how often our voice sometimes is really trying to help us. I want to say the biggest thing that woke me up this morning was just this instant wanting to share other people's stories.
Hmm.
And I don't know what the supermoon means for everyone, although knowing that people were saying like this type of energy is not going to happen until 2037 again, I'm like, okay, well, what type of energy is it? I feel like this morning I got awoken to the idea of like that instant, like you only have 24 hours in the day. And I
Hmm.
get that sleep is very important. So is rest, which is very different. And shout out to your conversation last week. So is pausing. And how
Hmm.
often are we giving ourselves that play to then prepare? And again, that brings me back to the artist way. It's the first time I feel like I woke up. Again, it's like 3 weeks. Woke up excited to write the pages to see whatever download came out. And it's funny because 2 days ago, it came out that me and my boyfriend of 6 years, we actually bought our first website domain. And again, like it was like the night before, I was like, I don't know what's going to come from that. And I'm like listening to like Neville Goddard, shout out to Feeling is the Secret. And as I woke up, like my subconscious, like, I know what the website is supposed to be. And so again, when I woke up this morning, I feel like I'm still on that. It's only like 2 days later. And so I feel like my intention this morning, because along with the morning rush on my Wednesdays, every morning, outside of even just the weekdays, on Saturdays and Sundays as well, I lead this 10-minute intentional internal meditation. And so as I sat with myself this morning and writing, the biggest thing that came out was that always always a like new beginning. And you actually mentioned that again on the morning rush this morning, like just like having that fresh start to whatever it was. And I didn't get that when I first woke up, but even as you're asking me that, that's what really set with my intention today, is realizing every moment, even after the sentence, I get to recreate myself in however I want it to be. And I feel like it's more than a superpower. It's something that humans forget we have so often. And so maybe that's what's lighting me up today, is for me, along with whoever is listening, to be in that reminder that as much as we love to say that perfection is a process, honestly, all practice does is make progress. I don't know what people's definition of perfection is, but I always liked that one too. Error is human. And realizing anytime you're in human, you have that mode to literally recreate yourself. And so I want to say my biggest reason of waking up this morning was I still realize where I'm in my own way of becoming perfection for who Janine is going to be as the best version of myself, at least at the end of today. And that's to remind myself that even while I'm doing it live, even if I've practiced what I wanted to say, it's always going to be a first time doing it. And so
Hmm.
just kind of being in that presence that every moment is not only unique, it will never be recreated. And even though there's no such thing as perfection, you can always have the pleasure in knowing that you are that reflection of I did my best, at least in this one sentence and this one sentence. So yeah, that's what woke me up.
Yes. Yes, I love it. I'm not familiar with all of the people that you threw out. The sorry, not threw out. I'm really thinking of the intentional like ways I speak about things. The people that you mentioned and acknowledged. So I can't even. I didn't capture the first one, but because I was just like so with you and present. So you can go back and listen to the recording if you got it. Um, I really what resonated for me there was to err is to human, right?
Mm.
And I even I looked it up just now. It was really interesting. The National Library of Medicine brought it up, and that's and it talks about just the silence around medical errors. That's and I don't know if that's the reference, but that's wasn't something I was even familiar with, and how it affects it's everywhere. What are some of have there ever been ways and it's so beautiful to hear like how you show up and the space that you hold. I heard you say meditation and meditation groups, and shout out to
Mhm.
your morning meditation group. If you have a link that you'd like to share with the community here, feel free to you can either put it in our private chat here, or you can send it to me afterwards. I'll make sure everyone has it. So that's at 9 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, 9 a.m. Eastern.
On what day of the week?
Every day on
Every
Zoom.
day.
Yeah, even
Monday
on days that I
through
travel.
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday through
Okay, cool.
Sunday.
Oh, yay, Becky's here listening.
Hi,
Hi,
Becky.
Becky. We were just calling you in earlier, Becky, talking about how wonderful and amazing you are. So I'm glad you heard the call and picked up.
Yeah.
So, Becky, if you have any comments or questions along the way, feel free to ask them. Janine, one of the things we talked about sort of in our quote unquote pre-interview, but you mentioned about how humans can really be their own source of medicine. I see so many
Mhm.
people looking out there for the answer somewhere else, somebody else, something. This thing's gonna fix me. This pill, this relationship, this group, this fitness class, this diet, whatever it is. How did you come to trust your own medicine? And can you talk to us a bit more? Well, let's start there. I think that's a good place to start. And then I'd love to hear maybe how other people might access their own source. If they're like, really, me, I'm depressed, I'm shut down, like, or stressed out or don't have time. Like, what do you mean? How would I go sit and be my source?
Yeah.
How did you learn to access your source? I mean, you're an entrepreneur, right? Do you want to
Mhm.
talk a little bit about what you do for work or his passion?
Absolutely. And actually, the biggest way I ever had my first breakthrough was a genesis through a world of transformation. Some people might be familiar with it as landmark teachings. And it was the
Mm-hmm.
first time I had stood up on my Friday conversation and I had declared that I was the possibility of world peace. And I
Mm.
remember when I was a little girl, and the first time I ever heard of that, it was like the Miss Universe types of pageants, and everyone kind of giddied about it. But in this room, knowing I could have anything, and knowing that that was something that I know not only wanted, but if I really thought it was possible, and I spoke it into this community, it could be done. And the landmark forum leader came over, Jocelyn, and she she let me know that after a couple conversations, like a couple sentences, again, sentences unravel everything that has us feeling like our story is really what happened. And in
Mm.
that moment, I saw myself as this traumatized person who, if I didn't rewrite the way that I wanted to be, I was never going to have that peace. And she said it in one sentence, way better than the way I just said it, but that was how I felt about it. It was, how are you going to have peace in the world when you still have war in your home? And after that day, one, I got my relationship back with my dad because up until that moment, I was okay with not having my dad's phone number in my phone. And it's funny because I literally sent him a conversation today. Like, he is one of my closest people that I love reflecting back on, because where I come from in this world, I understand that trauma is something that everyone is born into. I don't care if it's something that someone says is small, like this forum leader, like when she tried to give her mom like an inchworm, versus when I witnessed my dad hitting my mom on Thanksgiving and watching that fall. And a lot of what I think people would say, Ben, is like, that's not the same. And it really is, at least for me. And I understand for other people, you can have it however you want. But the way I see and feel my trauma is, if I allow what happened to always be present to what I'm creating, I'm always going to feel that separation, that I don't have peace in my place. And so I have to go create it somewhere else. And so that's where I really got the distinction.
Mm.
Anything I'm trying to reflect in the external, it's really a cry from inside, because that's all I think language is. And we'll go into a little bit of my entrepreneurship journey, because one of my greatest mentors, Cash Rastan, has let us know, like, all language comes from two sources. It's either love or a cry for love. And so if I'm out there trying to put love into the world, where is that cry? And again, this also goes a little bit into my spirituality. Why I love my meditation is I recognize all denominations. And one of the ones that I'm speaking into on behalf right now is Buddhism. Like, just the idea that to have both is to be in balance. Like, if you're a Star Wars fan, you might say Yoda, like, you need to have the balance, like there is no without the other. Although to know that both of them are there doesn't mean you have to hold them both to yourself. And one of the things my boyfriend always reminds me of is that there are two wolves. There is a light wolf and there is a dark wolf. And both of them can be fed. But which ones do we choose to feed? And so going back to the way that I process myself is when I see that I have an area that I feel needs to be corrected, I don't focus on it. There's a gentleman named Steve Siebel. He talks about the world class. And again, this going towards like entrepreneurship or people who really want to get out in the world and not necessarily just be within where we are. To be out in the world, you have to recognize everyone has an area that feels unfulfilled at times. And they don't spend their lives fulfilling that. They go out to fulfill more. Because if we really are generating peace, it happens in a place that you are in that. You are in the creation of it. And I give this to my definition, and we'll go a little bit further into that. So trying to like not make too many strings. One of my favorite definitions.
We're with you. We're with you. This is beautiful.
One of my favorite definitions I have made for myself is, if everyone truly believed in world peace, we'd actively be in our own pursuit of happiness. And when everyone is in their own pursuit of happiness, peace will only happen when we do not hate, hinder, or harm anyone else on their path. Now, again, I'm giving the room for rackets, because if people aren't on that path, you can have that 90-second that Tony Robbins talks about, like, okay, be in that moment, like give yourself a little bit more of a pump and then return. Because if you really are in a world that is of lack, all you're going to see is lack. If you're in a world of love, all you're going to see is love. Although where I'm operating from and where I love that my entrepreneurship has brought me is I went from a very construct world, like I had mentioned, at the age of 12, watching my family go from 2 Porsches and a 2.5-acre garage out in California until divorce, where my mom and me and my brother went on welfare out in Joshua Tree, and my 3 older sisters and my mom stayed in the oceanside area. And I really quickly distinguished for myself in that moment that if I truly wanted to have a life where I was in control, and again, I didn't understand everything yet, so bear with this 12-year-old. If I wanted everything in control, I needed to be in a job that gave me security. I needed to have the comfort to know I could leave whenever I wanted. And I also needed to know if people didn't make me happy, I needed to get out. And so with those, it did create a beautiful scenario for a good quarter of my beginning life. And it wasn't until 26, again, I moved to New York. My company paid for it. I moved into my own studio apartment. Like, I was living that life out in New York City. And then to have this disruption of realizing that I had literally run away from everything that I thought was the problem. But the equation about all of us is that we're always there. Like, it's going to keep showing up if we don't resolve it. And so what I love saying in my scenarios now, and thank you for asking that, Ben, is any area that I feel a dissettlement, a dis-ease, a disharmony, first I have to start with myself and realize, am I making that disharmony the fault? And if it is, and again, this goes back to terminology, I need to become cause in the matter. If I ever say something else is the reason, and it's because of that, or it's because of them, or it's because of yesterday, I'm making myself in a space where I have no control. As soon as I become responsible for it, I can then make an alteration. And it was through that. I literally wanted to become a leader of having people maybe not have the whole breakthrough, because I'm going to be honest, a shout out to the people who hold that type of space, Ben. I just wanted to be someone who had them know in like maybe 30 minutes what was missing, enough for them to get that taste. Like, I am inspired now to not only want to move, transform, and rewrite my world so I can start having the words that empower my world, that I wanted to be that person. And granted, I did not become that person. In fact, what I did was I quit my job. I traveled to Thailand. I wrote a book. And on behalf of everything that I was rewriting and my genesis of my extraordinary life, I became an entrepreneur. I no longer was an engineer who projected projects out into the future. Now I sit down with people and I project out what they really want. And I'm starting to rewrite my love story, because I am realizing that my forum leader was right. I was never going to see world peace if I was still fighting the world in my own home. And if I keep looking at the world of, I need this to be XYZ based on other people, it's just robbing me of my own peace. And it's not letting them be who they need to be. Because the other thing that my journey keeps reminding me of, and I'm so grateful for this, is if people if people want to have reasons why they're not winning be the reason they're not winning, they get to keep those reasons. And if I try to reason through that and I'm not someone who's actually in that conversation, I'm not helping. I might not be hurting or harming, but I'm definitely not allowing them to pursue their happiness because now I have them trying to justify. And if you try to justify something even more, you're going to be more stuck in it. And so what I do now is I allow myself to be in that pause like you were having us go through last week, Ben. I allow myself to be prepared. So then when I'm actually out there to perform, I'm not trying to convince them. I want to just be someone who celebrates them. So eventually, when people are talking about like holding on to what's holding them back, they want to let go and join with me because that's how we're really going to start seeing this shift is when people don't feel like they're being forced out of what makes them feel subconsciously good. I don't want to say it makes them feel on the conscious level good, but subconsciously it feels good to hold on. And so if I can start having people be in those kind of contexts where they speak it out and actually rewrite in those moments, maybe that's not true, then they can really see a new point of view. But if I try to have them force it, it's never going to happen. Because what I do now as an entrepreneur, as a leader in a world where having people not necessarily just become valuable, but starting where they want to see their value be projected in the world, I sit down with individuals and I have them see where are those areas. And again, it's not a very quick process. Like I don't think there's any area of being quick when you're trying to rewrite life. Like it isn't instant gratification. It is a delayed
Mm,
gratification, if anything. And it
mm,
has them realize those areas that are traumas to become their triumphs. Like, what if because my family was the way it was, I automatically started seeing, oh yeah, like you don't have to always have money to have this solution. Like I still think I literally was a Disney princess. Like until I was 12, I literally thought racism was over. Like my father, my mother, like what they did for us children to move us from like New York, New Jersey out to New Mexico, find out they were going to have us and then go to California and be in this like orange grove where me and my friend used to be like, I'm so glad Martin Luther King did everything he did so we could be friends. And then move to a place in Joshua Tree and find out about white supremacy. I was just like, what is going on? And I remember that is, and I had to apologize to my dad. That was one of the biggest reasons I was so angry at him. I'm like, you lied to me.
mm.
Um, and it's funny because like even today, like as I'm having this conversation with you, I'm so glad that I get to talk to my dad after this because I was talking to him about, again, the artist way. And like one of the biggest things, like, how do we write our traumas into our triumphs? And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful, Ben, for 12 years that I really saw the world I know I'm creating. I know I'm creating it because there's no difference between when Morgan Freeman said, like, the only reason we have diversity is because we speak it into existence, that we can't also rewrite certain things that are completely in evidence and just have them be no longer an area where we're being held back, but it's an area where we get to hold out the difference that we're creating together. And so that is what my biggest mission is. I know I went kind of like on a big spiral there. I didn't go to circle, I went to spiral because I do realize that where you were asking about how I do what I do, why I do what I do, and where I'm gonna be doing this more. You didn't ask the where part, but I'm creating it. Where I keep doing this is just
Yeah.
conversation and sentence to sentence.
Mm.
Yeah.
What a beautiful way to practice being present. And thank you for everything you just shared with us about. Woo, I'm not going to try to recap everything because there's too much
Okay.
gold in there to recap. But I do, I really want to, I hear one thing that it really struck me when you're talking about playing in those orchards with your friend. Because I remember growing up, my father was a minister, but in our church was mostly a bunch of white people, but he really believed because we were Episcopalian and that was just the way back then. And
What's
you
that?
Episcopalian came from the Church of England. So when the Church of England broke off and went into the Church of England and the Church of Scotland, was Anglican. That became Episcopalians and Presbyterians. So the Scottish became Presbyterians,
Oh,
the English became Episcopalians, and then when the English came over to the U.S., they brought Episcopalianism. It's a denomination of Christianity, and it's very
okay.
there's a lot of I forget the exact word for it. There's a lot of rituals in it, very similar to a Catholic service. However, it's a liberal interpretation of the Bible, so they get called like Birkenstock Catholic sometimes, or like Catholic Light, because most of the Episcopalians I knew were like the Episcopalian Church was the first one of Christian denomination to accept all people. Um, you know, back then we just had like gay or straight, so it was like gay people are welcome, all races, all religions. And so it was a really beautiful, welcoming community. My father was one of the first men to come out in the Southeast Diocese as openly gay and start to make that change in the Southern United States. But he was like a civil rights leader, and I had my best friend was black, and I was in this like all black baseball league, and I didn't
Mm.
think about it
Yeah.
until like this age when I was like, oh my God, this is so unfair and hard. Like, there's not words for it. We could have a whole nother episode there, but I really relate to that and think about like as children, what are those dreams that suddenly we see a reality and we think then this crushes everything so we can no longer have peace. And I really see like who you are, the way you've described what you make possible for people in the world and the space you hold is that peace. Like I think Martin Luther King would be so proud to see us talking today and the work that we're both doing in the world. But really I
Yeah.
want to honor you because you brought him up. My father got to see him. My dad grew up in Memphis. And so to I really want to honor that. Like I'm just really moved by that, and that we even got to say his name today. And we're in a super moon and creating what's possible in the world, and how to just be here like sentence by sentence together. So thank you for reminding me of that. Um, it feels like a fun time to share about the crusade that you're
I
asking about.
know.
Okay, cool. So we have it's really ironic that you maybe it's not ironic, but back here is a playbill from the it was Gay Pride in 2017 or
Okay.
18, and we had an off-Broadway show that I was in get picked up, and uh, we had some really, really amazing. Bryan Cranston became an investor, and Aaron Paul became an investor, like the cast of Breaking Bad, basically.
Yeah.
And the play, and I didn't even realize, I don't know if you're asking about this or this, but I didn't realize that I was drinking from my Crusade mug, and you asked me about it, and I lifted up, and I was like, oh my God, Janine is so picking up on this. So this is the Crusade of Connor Stevens, and it was written by dear friend Dewey Moss, and it won tons of awards. And it was in New York, and it was about a young man named Jim Jr., who was my character, whose father, Jim, and ironically enough, my father's name is Jim, and
Easy
was a
goal for you.
preacher. But this guy was a Southern Baptist preacher in Texas, and homophobic, anti-gay, and pro-gun. And the story takes place the day of our daughter's funeral, who's been shot as a result of a hate crime that was intended for my gay husband.
Hmm.
And so it was, not light, and a really incredible space of, basically what happens. You can see the play online too, but there's a reveal at the end, and it actually brings the father and son together in such a magical way. Like all the boundaries they had that kept them separate, that othered them because of this belief or that politic or that
Yeah.
religion, gets dissolved, and they end up in each other's arms. And it was such an amazing. We had so many people from all walks of life just thank us for having these conversations. We had Gays Against Gun come and do a talk back. Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston came in person to see the show and meet us. And it was a conversation for what's possible in the world. Like why, like life's so short, we still believe we have to like off each other for what? Like some competition or fear, like you're afraid of that guy, you know, like. And so it reminds me, it's a pretty intense like coffee mug, and the posters, we all look really depressed and sad and serious, you know,
Makes
rightfully so.
sense.
Yeah. Oh, and my character was an active alcoholic too.
Oh,
Um, and I got to play it as a sober man. And so part of what I brought was like all the angels I had lost in my life who died, I felt like too soon because of alcoholism or depression or disease or suicide.
yeah.
And so I brought them in as my angels to carry me through this show so that I didn't have to carry this burden myself. And that was one of my ways that I kind of access my light as a performer so that I don't take these things on, that I actually think of, you know, you mentioned why you came on this podcast today. Like it's about the service and the people you get to help. So I think of, you know, this is like the crusade of what's possible. And, you know, sadly enough, it's still really relevant today, about, you know, how we handle humanity and our differences. And so, you know, I created Dude School so that men had at least the some access to feel safe to hopefully talk about what really matters to them, because I find a lot of men and most of us who have had, you know, that sort of wounded masculine upbringing or that generational trauma that gets passed down have not necessarily
Yeah.
had those safe spaces to really share and have these open, honest conversations. But I've found it's in these that I heal. Like when my partner and I say, you know, what's not working for us, that we get to be really honest and create newly rather than just like, well, we think different, so we should break up, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
So I really hear a lot of possibility in what you share. And thank you for asking about the crusade, because I haven't gotten to talk about it in a while.
Oh.
And this will have been its 6-year anniversary, so it's very appropriate.
Yeah. Supposed to come back around.
We have a question on the floor, Janine, that I'd love to ask you. It's from
Okay.
Becky Shea down in Florida. And
Oh,
Miss Becky is asking, she said, you know, I think an important part of our own journey is to discover our powers, to reflect on what we're most proud of. So what are you both most proud of? It's a great question. Let's start with you, Janine. What are you most proud of?
well, it's funny actually, even this morning, because now within my agency, I'm starting to hold office hours. Uh, I almost, and it's funny, I almost want to say the most proud one I am right now is back in the fifth grade. I spent so much time on this beautiful, like sponge painted, like acrylic laid, like gold Sharpie markered, no smoking poster that I ended up winning. Like they always do like the say no to drugs thing. And it was like smoking, don't get hooked. And it was like a fish fishing for people. And he had like cigarettes and I'm catching on to it, which in logistics, it just doesn't make sense. Like cigarettes wouldn't be lit in the water. And why are people in the water? It didn't make sense, but I won. Although
I got the
this,
point. It sounds
yeah,
captivating.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, it was a fifth grader. I felt pretty excited
It's
about
very
it.
creative.
Thank you. And so it's funny because I feel like until this morning, because we were having this conversation, like literally, we have an acronym DOG. It's your dreams, your actions, your whys, your goals. And
Mm.
it's like building on each other to bring out where you are. And at least for me, I want to say the one I know I'm going to be the most proud of. Well, it's part of a workshop that I do, that you write what you've done when you're 90 that you're the most proud of.
Mm.
And granted, that is a ways off. But what I did do on, when was it? July 28th this year, so 2023, I submitted for my first grant, because the thing I'm the most proud of is in those moments that I still redefine myself as independent and very self resourceful. One of the things I've always been so excited about is building teams and having work together. And I had to rewrite a lot of that, because if anyone's ever worked with engineers, unless we know exact, I remember like freaking out some nights before when I knew I had to go up on the board the next day and explain to my teacher mass conversion. Like it was just like ridiculous things that I was like, I would freak out about it. And I still think like that stuff's still in my mind. Like, unless I know, I'm not going to say. And so what I'm really
Mm.
grateful for is for the first time, I want to build 11 different locations for a 12-month long program to rewrite the future youth that are being pushed out of foster and orphan ages because they're 18 and 19 and supposed to be adults and figure it all out. And for the first time, I'm not only asking for help, I'm writing out plans, I'm making things real, and I'm putting things out for a grant to understand like I am going to build something that is beyond me, but it's on my heart. And so, at least for me, it's funny because up until that point, I would say winning that fifth grade no smoking poster was the biggest thing. Until this morning, I'm explaining to my team what I'm going to do to rewrite the world of what the American dream is. Because more than just the American dream, I want people to all feel, even if they're not here, Ben, even if they don't live in America, I want them to know that they are the world dreamer. Um, anyway, so that's my biggest and proudest accomplishment right now is that I applied for my first grant. Yeah. Back to you, Ben. Thanks for that question.
Woo! That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, wow, the energy really is there for the supermoon. Hmm. I say that because I have been avoiding forming an LLC for 5 years
Oh
out
my
of
gosh. Okay.
fear and ignorance, really, and it just overwhelmed me. And I shut down. I formed two, and I dissolved one because I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, and I've been in business for a long time, but for myself, and so forming those next steps of like, I coach executives and CEOs on the regular, but having my own business or bank account terrified me. Like real talk. And today I had a friend hold me accountable, and she was like, dude, I had the same thing. I guarantee we can do it in less than 30 minutes. I'll be on the phone with you. So she did. We stayed on the phone together. I even signed up for a lawyer and got legal advice. And within 30 minutes this morning, I formed Dude LLC, which was something
Yes.
I'm really, really proud of. I think it's still sinking in, but like speaking from the future, I think I'm going to be like, yes, dude, like, way to go, buddy. Because
Yeah.
what it is it's not about me anymore. And it feels like it's like a weight off my shoulder. I'm like, oh, thank God. It's been such a struggle. The struggle is real. Like, as an artist, I realize I've known how to struggle, but learning how to thrive, like, I'm a
Mhm.
survivor. I used to wear survivor, like I'm a 9/11 survivor was part of my, like, if we met probably in the first 10 minutes of us talking, I would have shared that. And there was actually, is similarly, I was in a landmark course and I had a coach, we were working on a fear exercise, who asked me when I was going to let that shit go. It's like, are
Oh.
you ready to let go of your own suffering and stop being a victim of that story? And I was like, well, it happened to me. Yeah, yes. And would you like to stop being a victim of that story?
Yeah.
And we did that like a couple of times, and suddenly it was like, I think I really let it go, at least for a moment. I had the experience of that, and like my life shifted from that moment. I realized like what I was putting in my body didn't serve me, and all these things that led up to the fact that Dude was such a source of shame in my life, that I had had $1 million contract waiting for me, and I blew it up and ruined my career and a lot of other chances, and impacted a lot of lives of my team and my agents because I was a fuck up. I mean, we can use that word here today,
Yeah.
um, but that's what was there for me. And so as soon as I started learning to get out of my own way, and things like having this LLC today is just a standing of what's going to be under it is a Dude conference for men from all over the world who serve other men, to learn that for us to work together and stop competing, and then make the space for all men and non-binary people. And we even have a class on queer masculinity that we're presenting soon, and for women too. And then our this podcast and Dude
Mhm.
School, our online programming, and our Dude Deep Dives, which are in-person retreats for men to reclaim their medicine and their healing power together. And I think those are all the things that have come out of that I'm really proud of. So that's from the future, and thank you for asking that question, because it's like it's in the sauce today. Like, who,
Yeah.
if any of you are avoiding starting a business, I think today is a great day to do it. And if there's someone who's done it before, you could ask them for help. That's what has been great for me.
Yeah. And it's
Uh,
funny because this goes back to your topic this morning. Again, shout out to the Morning Rush about communities.
mhm,
Because one of the biggest things anyone can do if they want to create something that they've never seen before is to find a mentor, find someone who has paved the way, not just in the way the business is, but also, and this is like my favorite thing, how their life is. Because it's very different to see it like all printed and pretty and on the front. Are they having like the family lifestyle that you have, like the charity lifestyle that you have, the alone type of life? Like if you can find a mentor to not only coach you through, but you really want to see their life, going back to that human experience, I almost guarantee that they not only would willingly want to meet you, if they're anything like some of the entrepreneurs I have, they'll have that moment where you just make eye contact and you're like, oh my gosh, like, is this person me? Like, you literally
mhm,
will have those types of moments because if, like you're saying, Ben, like, get out there and do it yourself, get out there and find someone who's done it before you. Realize that if you're willing to do that, again, I can't fully promise, but at least in my experience of the last 2.5 years I've been an entrepreneur, like almost everyone I sit down with who asks me questions beyond just like business, but they want to know lifestyle and they want to know about like the whys and the motivations, you literally see yourself. And again, to your point, like everything you've created around the dude enterprise that literally from what you had just shared used to be a darkness and now you've shown
mhm,
so much light. I love that this conversation is reminding me when you really want to take on something bigger than yourself, be ready to not only have it be paid sevenfold, but then to turn around and realize like there's going to be so many versions of you that are grateful you started because they would have never believed in themselves if they didn't see you first, Ben. I'm so
mhm,
grateful for you. I can't wait for you to
mhm.
start connecting with some of my friends. Like, I know I've sent them to you. I know you are a busy man, back to back, like not just retreats, not just like starting your LLC, not just having carnivals in your backyard while you're meditating and Zen with your beautiful family, but thank you for making time for all of us. Like,
Oh my
seriously.
God, my pleasure. And like
Yeah,
speaking of that meditating, like I tried, it actually
you
got me
did. I
out
saw
of
it.
rage and into action. Because my friend was like, "Wow, you seem really calm right now. Like maybe you should come talk to the mayor." And I was like, "Oh, I did my work this morning. I did not wake up. Like I did my fair share of that, and I'm like a human in the making. Like I told my wife, I was like, well, I didn't quite handle as well as I would have liked to, but here's what I did do, and I think this is what I can do better next time. But that was like just telling someone was helpful. Um, so thank you for that. It's that power of pause, the community, finding that safe space, finding a mentor.
Mhm.
Um, I just busy maybe, but I just feel like my life is full and I get to do what I love. And I get to meet all kinds of people every day. Like, I'm already starting to meet the people you connected with. Like, we're just making
Yes.
time and it happens. And there's a lot of beautiful, I mean, so much magic. We're just planting seeds today. It's really just
Yeah.
beginning. But for the sake of time, I want to start to steer us off towards the end here so that we
Okay.
can really leave our listeners with a few takeaways. I mean, there's been so much gold here, but I would love to know. You mentioned finding a mentor. What's the best way to find you? So, if people who are moved, touched, and inspired by you, Janine, they're like, I saw this person, and yes.
Well, it's funny though, because I feel like, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with finding me. If you do choose to find me, I see the best way is to just be willing, whatever day works for you. Pop on 9 a.m. Eastern on my Zoom link. We also have a WhatsApp chat. I think that's the best way to really kind of just sink in and see like if the space I'm holding is for you. Now, more than
Mm,
just me though, I think anytime, anywhere you want to find a mentor, whether it be in like culinary arts to like the custodial arts, wherever it is, whether it's food for thought or you want to be like that fireball cosmic traveler. And shout out to all my cosmic traveling, like just sirens. I love so many people who, outside of what Zoom has provided to us, we're still making those efforts to be in person. Like, I love that. Um,
Mm.
I think one of the best ways to ever find a mentor is first sitting with yourself and realizing, if I could only talk about one thing for the rest of my life, what would it be? Because I honestly think, like, outside of me going from everything that had me become an engineer and everything that had me write off love and everything that had me figure, again, if I could just make the money, if I could just be in a space of safety, if I could just be in a container where no one could tell me that I had to move out of my house, that they were going to take my car, that I wasn't going to be able to see parts of my family again, like, I don't think I'd be the person I am now. But, not but. And what I will share is, if you're in those types of spaces where you ever feel contained, the biggest thing, and this goes back to diversity, I feel like first find someone that in those moments you still feel like you can be yourself around. Um, I feel like that's the first thing, because, like, going back to, and I guess there's not, I guess, I know there's a few people in my communication that purpose isn't something that some people are seeking. I really do feel like we all do have a burning desire. And I feel like if you are in a space where you want to just be where you're at and you don't feel like you need to contribute to others, totally fine. What I would offer is maybe seeing where you want to celebrate. You don't have to be someone who wants to be mentored. Just celebrate things. Start finding out where you start getting excited, because maybe your role really is more of the supportive role. Like, you're not the one who's going to create the new environment, but you're going to be the one who's there every Friday night. Like, um, but if you really are on that path, and again, I am speaking to, like, past Janine, who felt like being an engineer was not only enough, it actually made you happy. Be there until you're not. And then whatever you can do next, I honestly, again, I hold space that you're able to just meditate. Like, be with your thoughts. You don't have to plan a million volunteer activities. You don't need to, like, go to every company gathering. You don't even need to, like, pretend to be happy. Just sit with yourself and listen, because inevitably whatever comes up, that is what's going to be the biggest source. And granted, maybe it won't be a mentor. So even though we do say finding mentors is something that's important, if it's just you giving yourself a space to, like, listen, I feel like that's the biggest thing you can do for all of humanity. Because more than what we think we have to continue to talk about, when we really are silent, and I learned this from my brother-in-law, when we really are silent, and it's the same amount of letters in listen, you allow yourself to listen to when everything allows you to actually be to yourself. Because I feel like what everything happened since 2020, it started having people recognize how much they were doing life not for anything great. And I'm grateful. I feel like my generation is one of the big ones that really is coming up and realizing that there was that whole fear of, like, dying and feeling like you will regret something. And granted, I know there was this funny meme that was like, no regrets, and they spelled it wrong, but it is kind of funny because in any moment, going back sentence to sentence, you get to recreate yourself. And so when we are thinking about finding mentors, I would love for the whole world to know how to just hold 10 minutes of internal intentional peace with the words that are literally going to shape their world, and watch how they spin out. Although, if that's not what's going to create you to have that conversation and you do need to find a mentor, again, the second thing I would probably recommend is to listen to what, if you are completely able to have only one conversation for the rest of your life, that's what you would talk about, start looking for people who are lit up by that too. And again, if you're not someone who wants to give that space of 10 minutes, if you're not someone who wants to get lit up in whatever conversations that could truly lead to a purpose or an area where you could find so much value in playing, allow yourself to just start celebrating. There's nothing wrong with just celebrating. It's just realizing that the world right now is in a space that there are so many tethered strings that may not be serving humanity right now. And if you would just be the person that, even if it's not like the best thing you see, but it's something that you see as a positive act, you start celebrating it. I truly do believe like we are going to see more people doing the things that they want. And maybe you won't shift at all, but you'll start being in miracles of, wow, all these things are exciting. Or, wow, I'm the one who shifted that. Or, wow, I was the mentor they came and found. And so whatever your path is, I think I break it down to this too. There are a lot of people who are on the defense, and there's going to be a lot of people who choose to be on the offense. And for those that are like me and there is just no fence, thank you, because there are so many spaces that people feel like they have to fit in. And to just know that you don't have to fit in, you don't have to get out, you can just be without a doubt just who you are meant to be. Like I'm so grateful. And again, I'm so grateful for this space that you've created, Ben, because more than people getting well, I'm grateful to know that I went from a space of thinking everything was fine to everything being taken away, and then realizing like, I want to say it was Confucius. Now I forget who had said it, but nothing was ever taken from me that I already had. I think the saying is, if you like a flower, you'll pick it, but if you love it, you'll let it grow, you'll leave it. And I think that's what humanity wants us to remember, is that everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. If you try to stop it, flow will force you. If you try to go too fast, divinity will find obstacles. And if you just allow yourself to be patient, to pause, to be in the silence just because it feels good, you're going to find more good things surrounding you. And so regardless if you find someone that you want to follow, you start being followed because people like the way you live. Just as long as you are in a space that allows you to be in harmony, I feel like we're going to start seeing more people being in their pursuit of happiness. And we're going to start seeing everything shine a little bit brighter.
That's beautiful. Well, speaking of that, we both have the sun like shining through our screens right now. I love it. It's like, as you said that, I'm like, wow, you're literally glowing. um, so I have a few closing questions for you. One you already answered, but I'm going to ask it to you newly anyway, but this is not it. So the closing questions are, the first one is, if your life were a Hollywood film up until now, what would you name it? What would the
I already know this. And I love double speak, so it depends. As of right now, it would be Sonder Lives, because in the play on word is Sonder Lives. But as of right now, I am focusing on where the one is. So it would be Sonder Lives.
And if your partner were to name this movie, what might he title it?
Adventure Cats.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, play on word for him too, because we're both in the world of having people find value. And so again, we work with 3 nonprofits right now, but the one we just brought on, because we are now running October 1st, the Twin Cities 10 mile, is the Adventure Project, which turns not just giving the world a fish, but teaching them how to fish. Like, we're no longer just putting on Band-Aids. We are healing, because one of the founders, her name is Becky too. Becky Straw, she saw after most of her 20s spending in Africa that she was going to these communities, buying and raising money for the 3rd, 6th, 9th well in these communities, because every time they broke, they just bought a new one. And because of her mindset during Charity Water, she created the Adventure Project, also known as TAP. It now has multiple different areas, but it started with the same idea. More than just buying wells, why don't we teach people in these communities to be well mechanics, and all the pieces have them be manufactured in those communities? And so for him, when we sat down with the growth development partner, shout out, he just moved back to Minnesota, so we go running with him. He's part of our organization. And at least for what he created was the idea that adventure was supposed to be a play on word. And so now me and Daniel, again, it's our domain. We have it as of 2 days ago, It's Adventure Cats. So Adventure Cats.
I
Anyway,
love it.
yeah.
Yes.
He's a
Very cool.
clever boy. I can't wait till you meet Daniel.
Well, yeah, if he's in partnership with you, I would assume so. That's great. I would love to meet him too. And I love Minnesota. I've had some great experiences there and some wonderful people from there. So, two more questions. One, do you have
Okay.
any hidden talents or anything that we might not know about you, like that you're really good at secretly or just don't show people very often?
Well, I didn't know it was a secret thing. I mean, it was the talent I showcased. I once was on the Bronco court for my college in 2012. I would remix famous songs, not famous, but like known songs like Gwen Stefani's like Bananas or Fantasy from Ludacris. I would remix it into words that would like be a new like alma or a new song for the school. And I used to do that, I guess, so often during my summer job as an orientation leader that now very often I just practice it before my meditation. Sometimes it's a 5 minute reminder. But yeah, I'm a kind of a wordsmith. I think that's a hidden talent.
Ooh,
As a
very cool.
yeah, as a previous engineer, usually being a social butterfly wasn't always in the cards for most engineered side
Hmm.
people.
Well,
Yeah,
that's changing. You're rewriting the narrative, right?
I know.
What's possible for engineers in the world.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, wordsmith. And if you could, our last question, it's a two-part, but the first one
Okay.
is if you could give the world one gift today, what would you give us?
It's funny. This used to be one of my favorite questions to ask people. What I'm going to say is my answer is I would give people the gift of unwavering, untapped, subconscious potential to see their dream and to have that. I almost want to say like Super Sen or like, I don't know, like cheat code on like The Sims or something to know in their mind's eye that they could not fail getting to that space that is calling of love. Now, again, when I say that, some people's mind's eye, like they're like, oh, I want to win $1 million, but I would almost have them go that 7 layer why, right? And so you find out why they actually want to win the 7 million, they want to win the $1 million or whatnot. And so, as their default of what they're speaking is truly connected to that unwavering frequency of love. So, everything that people are calling in for their dreams, they would be able to get to the default level of what they're really calling in. Because again, I love that I own a financial agency. And I wish at this point, after again, it's only been 2.5 years, the biggest thing that always blows my mind is when people sit down with me for the first time and they say what they want. And then I have to like reverse engineer it and find out, okay, that's just like paper and coin. Like, what do
Hmm.
you actually want that for? And it brings so much like clarity to me how often people don't think about it, but it also gives
Hmm.
me so much happiness to know that I get to gift that to them. So I feel like I do that, Ben, and if I could do that with people who didn't have to sit down with me, like I
Yeah.
literally had them see why they wanted what they wanted. Yeah, that is my gift I would love to give the world today, Ben.
Amazing. And if we had it all right now, like magic, what do you see us all doing?
Oh my gosh. Well, the first thing I think a lot more people would do is call their family. Because I feel like a lot of the reasons we don't speak to our family the way we want to is we are so afraid that they are so, for me, because I can't speak for others, I realize that some of the dreams I have, my family loves me so much that they see it as a risk. And so they'd rather try to protect me than try to promote me. And I am okay
Hmm.
with that because I love how much I still accomplish knowing that I get to rewrite where fear holds so many amazing people back. So, yeah, that I think more people would call their families.
Amen. Well, I'm gonna go call my family after this. So thank you for that. That's like, oh yeah, my mom's been calling today. Like that's exactly what there is to do. So thank you, because she's still
Of course.
alive, and I can, we can talk to them even if they're not alive, right? The things
Yes.
I've started practicing, like picking up the phone from my loved ones who have crossed over. Like, what if I could just keep talking to them and gain even more wisdom because I don't have to worry about whether or not they're available, you know?
Yeah. Thank you for practicing some energy.
You're welcome, and I'm it's a gift for me too if I remember to do it. So thank you for the reminder, and it's been such a gift to have you on the show. I just want to remind our listeners, please comment, please subscribe, and let us know what landed so that we can help get more of this medicine out there. And if you love this show, tell us. And if you want to get in touch with Janine, let me know. I'm happy to do so. She gave you some places to find her, and on the meditation, which I dropped here and will share when this episode goes live on our show. It's going to be sent out everywhere you stream podcasts around the world. And we're live right here on Facebook and YouTube right now so that you can be the first one to find out. So we're going to be posting a lot more about her and some clips from the show. And you can always just go back and click the rewind button and catch anything that landed for you. So, again, tell us what landed, tell a friend. And if no one told you they love you today, love you,
You
dude. You're getting well.
love
Love you, Janine. Thank you for this gift today and for being with me and, yeah, just being yourself. Thanks for bringing in the realness.
Have to reciprocate it. Thank you so much, Ben.
My pleasure. Well, have a great day, everyone. Stay tuned.